Let's speak to Greg Simons. He's in Sweden. He's Associate Professor at the Institute for Russian and Eurasian Studies at Uppsala University. Thank you very much for your time, Greg Simons. Give us an overall analysis of what happened in the early hours of Saturday in Syria, if you would.
Well, it was seen clearly as it was going to happen. I talked about it last night, in fact, when on being interviewed. It was clearly over the last few days been building up to try and legitimise what they call a limited strike and to have the pretense that it was directed at the usual suspects. But the problem is that, as you noted in your lead-up, this is a suspected chemical weapons attack. So therefore, it is not proven. And the fact that they raided the morning of the day that the OPCW inspectors were due to arrive makes the reassurances of those leaders of the UK, US and France seem very suspect.
Greg, no one likes to see pictures of chemical attacks. We've already seen far too many during the now 8th year of the Syrian war. Let's just presume that last Saturday, on the 7th of April, in Duma, Eastern Ghouta, that was a chemical attack launched by the Assad regime. Can we just assume that for the moment? That's the justification for the US, the UK and France taking this action. What does it say about those three countries that they should launch this attack on Syria now, when only about, I say only, knowing full well that that word doesn't quite fit the description, 1,000 people have died in 8 years of war in Syria through chemical attacks. 500,000 people have died through conventional weapons. What did those three countries do then?
Well, I think that even assuming that an attack has taken place and that there is some culpability to be directed, even though this hasn't been done so, there should be other measures, because the actual attacks that they launched are contrary to international law and the rules of war, because no war has been declared. This has been done on a number of occasions. And I think it's quite a worrying trend because these assumptions have been taken before. They've been taken in 2003 with Iraq, they've been taken in 2011 with Libya, and people expect more than assumptions, especially when those stated assumptions turn out to be incorrect.
What is Russia's position now in terms of having said that it would defend Syria and its territory if this kind of attack were to be launched, and now having shown to have done nothing in terms of not using its air defences in the country? Where does it leave Russia in terms of its involvement in supporting Bashar al-Assad? Because if the US is to regard what happened on Saturday as possibly an indication of the way forward, there could be more scope for more strikes from countries who are opposed to Bashar al-Assad.
Well, I think there are a couple of issues here, one of which is that the Syrian and Russian air defences are integrated. So therefore, Russia isn't doing exactly nothing. It is doing a rather limited something. Certainly, that they are showing restraint at this point in time. But given the fact that the words of Trump and of May indicate that there are going to be further possible military attacks against Syria, I'm not sure how much restraint can be shown further, because this is going strictly against and pressing Russia's red line. So, I mean, this is a dangerous game of chicken.
Is there a dichotomy in, let's say, the US position, say the US-led coalition as it existed 12 hours or so ago now? Is there a dichotomy in that coalition's position regarding Bashar al-Assad? Do they actually need him to fight terrorists in Syria? but also need to stop him from killing civilians while he's fighting the terrorists?
Well, it's a tricky situation because in people's memory, of course, is Libya, which, Gaddafi said the same thing. I'm fighting terrorists. They regime changed him, and now the country is absolutely volatile and a terrorist paradise. Assad, of course, is in a similar situation, but it's much more closer to Europe than Libya. It's a more delicate situation given the number of different foreign interests involved. And I think one of the problems is that this lack of critical reflection by many mainstream media, which do not do their journalistic duty in challenging the main government narrative. If Assad was responsible for killing as many people as he's been presumed to have done, I don't think he would have the support of the population that he seems to have, insofar as that he's got an army that is loyal and fighting for him, and people, when those areas are liberated from those terrorist groups, that they are relieved. And on the other hand, the US especially has made some very ill-advised moves in arming so-called opposition factions. I mean, US weapons, and this is even in US Department of Defense audits, have been arming, amongst other groups, ISIS. And so the situation is a mess.
Greg Simons, we really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us on TRT World.